Good day guys, my name is Moses Wu. Welcome back to another reaction video by me for you guys. If you're new, man, you know what to do, guys. Down below, subscribe button, it's red for you. Please click it and please stay tuned, guys. I've got many reactions coming your way. Why was there never a black prophet? Quite interesting for a title. Wow, okay. I really have to hear this one. So many people are getting it confused, but let's get to it, guys. This one is going to be really interesting.
Were there black prophets from the ones that were mentioned to us? And we will find actually a few names that are household names, names that we read in the Quran. One of them, historically speaking, is Suleiman alayhi salam. Suleiman alayhi salam is biblically described as having dark skin. Okay, Bani Israel was not, they had various colors, historically speaking. Why? Because their origins were different. Some of them had Arab origins. Some of them had some Egyptian origin and so on and so forth. Suleiman alayhi salam is biblically described as having dark skin, for example. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam comes from the lineage of a black woman. Who is that woman? Hajar alayhi salam. Okay, so that's actually the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam himself. Musa alayhi salam, the man who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to directly, Kalimullah, the man who the Quran speaks about more than any other human being in history, subhanAllah, Musa alayhi salam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not just say that he was black. We're not even talking about biblical athar. We're talking about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said that Musa alayhi salam, when I saw him, he resembled the people of Az-Zut or Shanu'ah. Az-Zut and Shanu'ah were the two darkest tribes amongst the Arabs. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said Musa alayhi salam had the blackest skin. He was not, that's part of the problem with Hollywood imagery. Like Musa alayhi salam does not look like Christian Bale. All right, he doesn't look like, and even the older movie, the Ten Commandments, right? We have a certain image of Moses that's in our heads. Musa alayhi salam looks nothing like that. Okay, so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying when I saw him, and some of the ulama, they pointed out that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was saying that to the Sahaba, not only just to describe them physically, because he did do that sallallahu alayhi wasallam for some of the prophets, but also to show them the superiority of Musa alayhi salam despite the color of his skin. That there is no man, subhanAllah, that is praised more in the Quran and spoken about more in the Quran than him. So if you have a problem with people who have darker skin, you have a problem with Musa alayhi salam, then you have a serious problem with the Quran, and you have a serious problem with faith altogether. So subhanAllah, how can a racist be a Muslim then? How can a racist be a believer? How can a racist say he loves the Quran? When Kalimullah, the one who Allah spoke to most, is a man who was dark, extremely dark, as the Prophet ﷺ said.
I like this.
Obviously the Prophet who you have the most controversy about always in history is Jesus alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam. Why? Because Isa alayhi salam is the most highly politicized prophet in history. Even though he was not himself necessarily political per se, but his image has been politicized throughout history. Actually, subhanAllah, even the earliest days of Christianity after the Apostle Paul, the image that Jesus assumed depended on the culture that Paul was reaching. So Isa alayhi salam to the Persians looked like Mithras. He looked exactly like their Persian gods. To the Romans, he looked like their Roman gods. To the Egyptians, he looked like the Egyptian gods. To the Indians, some of the Hindus actually, said that Isa alayhi salam was an incarnation of the Lord Vishnu. So they portrayed him as a carnation of the Lord Vishnu. So Isa alayhi salam, his image has been politicized for thousands of years. Obviously, the Atlantic slave trade, okay, using the image of a white god. I remember, subhanAllah, me personally, I remember, my dad teaches at Southern University, which is a historically black college. And I went to Xavier University for some time. And Xavier, I remember walking in Xavier University and seeing a picture of, because Xavier is a Catholic university, seeing a picture of Isa alayhi salam, for example, with dreadlocks and with dark skin. And I was like,
look at
this
that.
is interesting, but it's probably more historically accurate than the images that we're used to. But right away, I was throttled, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not Isa alayhi salam. But I'm like, well, what is Isa alayhi salam, right? What does Jesus, peace be upon him, look like? Interestingly enough, we find a disagreement amongst the Sahaba themselves. So we find a few ahadith. One of them is from Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And this is authentic hadith that the Prophet ﷺ says that while I was sleeping at the Kaaba, I saw a dark man who is the most handsome of dark men that you have ever seen, meaning the most handsome man I've ever seen, or the most handsome of dark men I've ever seen. So he's saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's praising the beauty of Isa alayhi salam. He said he had hair that was reaching to between his ears and his shoulders, like the most beautiful of hair that you've ever seen. So he praised the color of Isa alayhi salam, he praised his looks, he praised his hair. And then he said he combed his hair and water was dripping from his hair, and he was leaning on two men who were doing tawaf around the Kaaba. So I asked, I said, Man hadha, who is this? So they said, this is Al-Masih ibn Maryam. This is the Messiah, Jesus ibn Maryam, alayhi salam. So he said, then I saw a man with wiry hair and who was blind in his right eye, as if it was a floating grape. And I said, who is this? And they said, this is Al-Masih al-Dajjal. This is the Antichrist. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, though, he has a narration where the Prophet ﷺ says, I saw Musa, Isa, and Ibrahim alayhim salam, and Isa alayhi salam was of a red complexion, curly hair, and a broad chest. Musa alayhi salam was of a dark complexion, straight hair, and a tall stature, as if he was of the people of a Zut. So that's also a hadith, right? Then you find Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Ibn Mas'ud's narration says that the Prophet ﷺ spoke about the Al-Masih al-Dajjal in front of the people, and he said Allah is not one-eyed while Ad-Dajjal is blind in the right eye. Why? Because Dajjal will claim to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said Allah is not one-eyed, Ad-Dajjal is blind in the right eye, and he said his eye looks like a rotten grape. Then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while I was sleeping near the Kaaba last night, I saw in my dream, فَإِذَا رَجُلٌ آدَمُ كَأَحْسَنِ مَا يُرَى مِنْ أَدَمٍ. The same thing that he said in the narration of Ibn Umar, that I saw a man of dark skin who was the most beautiful of all of those with dark skin that I'd ever seen, and with the most beautiful of hair of all of those that I'd ever seen. And he basically, it perfectly coincides with the narration of Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Then he continues to describe Ad-Dajjal as well. So what do we do here? Because we have a narration of Ibn Mas'ud and Ibn Umar that are authentic, where the Prophet ﷺ is describing Isa ﷺ as having dark skin, and then you have a narration of Ibn Abbas where the Prophet ﷺ is describing Isa ﷺ with red skin, which is, actually white skin. Okay, Ahmar would refer to very white skin. There's another narration from Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, also in al-Bukhari.
There's more, guys.
Where he says, لا والله ما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لعيسى أحمر. He said, I swear by Allah that the Prophet ﷺ did not say that Isa ﷺ had red skin. So Umar radiallahu anhu is attaching an oath to it. He said, ولكن قال بينما أنا نائم أطوف بالكعبة فإذا رجل آدم, and so on and so forth. He said, while I was sleeping, there was a man that approached, and he had dark skin, and so on and so forth. Now, the point of this is, number one, we should not dispute like the Christians do about the color of Isa ﷺ, because it doesn't matter. That's number one. It did not matter. You have conflicting narrations. The stronger of them, obviously, that Isa ﷺ had dark skin, which would be more historically accurate, but it doesn't matter. That's the point here. It was a non-factor, and it's part of the wisdom of not portraying the prophets of Allah. Okay? So, you have historical evidence. Ibn al-Manzur, he says that Hajar, Musa, Isa, and Adam alayhi salam, because Adam means dark. Actually, in the Arabic language, that's how the Arabs used to describe someone with dark skin. So Adam alayhi salam. And then you have the theological perspective, and as Ibn al-Manzur says, that the Sahaba did not care to ask much about this. And this is very significant, because if you look at the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to ask him about everything. But this was not a concern that they had. They would not ask the Prophet ﷺ, what color was Ibrahim? What color was this prophet? What color was he? Because it simply did not matter to them. So we should not portray them, and it should not become an issue to where it becomes politicized. Some of the other prophets that are mentioned in the Quran or figures, you have Dhul Qarnayn, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and Ibn Abbas, they both say that he was a black king. Now obviously Dhul Qarnayn is a controversial historical figure in and of itself, because is he Alexander? Is he Cyrus? Allahu alam. Again, it doesn't matter. The point being, though, at this point now, because we know that there are prophets that Allah mentioned and there are prophets that Allah did not mention. The Prophet ﷺ says that there were 124,000 prophets. So, authentic hadith in Muslim Imam Ahmad, 124,000 124,000 prophets. Amongst them, 315 were messengers. Now, 124,000 prophets. So you can imagine how many of them were of different languages, how many of them were of different races, what they must have looked like, where they were sent to. That would mean that there were African prophets, there were Indian prophets, there were Chinese prophets, there were prophets that were sent probably to the Americas way before, right? With the ancient settlers of this land, there were prophets that were sent there. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We don't punish a people until we send them a messenger from amongst themselves. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمٍ. We have never sent a prophet except that he speaks the language of his people. And as the scholars say, the language of his people did not mean just that he spoke the language. As you all know, there are people that speak English, but they still don't speak your language, right? We were talking about this earlier. As Sarah Palin would say, they don't speak American, all right? So there are people that don't speak your language, but they still speak your language, right? It's a different accent, or, they don't relate to you. The slang is different, so they might speak your language, but it's not really your language. So what did the ulama say that Allah means when he says, إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِ? That means a person who walked with them, spoke with them, a person that was just like them, a person that they could relate to, right? The whole point of, مَالِ هَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَمْشِي فِي يَأْكُلُ طَعَامُ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. What is it with this prophet that walks in the marketplace, uses the restrooms, eats, and so on and so forth? Allah wants to send you prophets that you could relate to. So when Allah would send prophets in the past, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sending them to people all over the world, Allah was sending prophets in every language and in every color. We can't say, well, Allah didn't mention African prophets and so on and so forth, so we can't assume that there were African prophets. We actually can very much so assume that there were African and Indian and so on and so forth prophets.
Wow, guys, wow. Omar! Straight to the point. Wow. This is amazing, man. This is amazing. And to the point that when he was saying that, like, for them, the color did not matter. Like, it doesn't. It's just the message and the way of living and how they were living. That's it. Oh, man. This is amazing. This is amazing. I'll leave the link down below, guys. Make sure you guys go check out the video. I remember growing up, I'm not sure how old I was. Maybe I was 13 or 12. Bear in mind, I'm raised in a Christian family. There was a pastor on the radio I was listening to. And it's like those radio shows where the pastor is just preaching. And the guy was preaching and preaching and preaching. And the most funny thing happened when the guy was preaching to show that the media has corrupted most people. After the guy finished preaching, he said Jesus is black. I remember I laughed so hard. And at that time, obviously, I was still young and didn't have much understanding. But I laughed so hard and I was calling him names like he's so stupid, he's dumb. But later on, I actually realized that that didn't matter. That did not matter. The color of his skin didn't matter. But yeah, that is a topic for another day. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll leave the link down below. I've learned a lot today from this video. If you like it, click the subscribe button. I've got more videos coming for you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.